back to the Boropolis podcast YouTube channel. As always, I'm joined with Nathan, and this is just going to be a relatively quick video to dissect all of the action from the midweek game against Sheffield United and preview the Hull City game coming up at the weekend. We're also going to talk about some very interesting comments from Neil Warnock. Nathan, I'm sure you can't wait to get into that. But first of all, how are you feeling after a win?
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, they were fantastic the other night. I suppose we will get into it, but much better and much more of what we'd like to see from the Boro.
Yeah, well, I mean, the result is something to be happy about, but I have woken up to no hot water in my university house this morning. So if it's not one bad thing with Middlesbrough, then the house that I'm living in is just trying to put me in a bad mood. But I'm not going to let it get me down because, you know, Sol Bamba is in the world and he's the best defender, and that's enough to make me be in a good mood forever.
Better than Van Dijk.
Well, yes, of course he is. We'll get on that later as well. First of all, I think before we actually get into the Sheffield United game, because obviously of the day that we recorded and uploaded the podcast, we did actually miss, I mean, quite a ridiculous turn of events on Monday prior to the game. It was obviously Neil Warnock's press conference, and he made some very interesting comments, namely about James Leah-Saliki and Martin Piero. I think the best place to start is, Nathan, what did you make of Neil Warnock's bizarre comments, really?
Well, for anyone that doesn't know, pretty much he just says that he was going for his tried and tested players now. From now on, Piero and Saliki would only be featuring in the team if they deserved and warranted that place in the team. So I think it begs the question initially, why are they being integrated in the team if they don't deserve the place? I think no matter who you bring in, they shouldn't just be brought in to immediately take a first team position, no matter what they do, or if they perform poorly in training, they shouldn't be taking a place based on just their name or a fee or just being brought in more recently than anyone else. But it's a strange comment, but it's worked in our favour with the result against Sheffield United. But yeah, I suppose the only way that these players are going to be integrated into the team is being given game time. But if that's in a limited manner in the next few weeks, and they start getting to grips with games, I think he spoke about Saliki's fitness not being there at the moment. So I think the only way that players like Saliki get the fitness right for games is by being lended minutes in the division. So I think possibly a bit of a strange thing to say coming out to the press and saying that he's unfit and he's not going to be given a chance really, and saying that he shouldn't go on international duty as well, when I think everyone had prioritised the country really over the club that they're at. But yeah, strange comment, but it worked in our favour.
Yeah, I mean, with Saliki, I think obviously he's only recently been called up to the Cameroon squad for the first time. So, of course, he's not going to want to make a bad impression almost straight away and potentially lose his place in the squad just because Neil Warnock wants him to stay and do a bit of fitness work. I think it's a bit naive, really, of Warnock to think that way. On Piero, I think, again, it's probably a little bit harsh. I mean, he's only played one game and probably about 40 minutes collectively of substitute appearances, probably not even that, to be honest. So to sort of make such a rash judgment, especially out in the opening to the press, I think, to me, obviously the Sheffield United result has probably changed that a little bit. It did, for me, feel like a man that knew he was under serious pressure going into that Sheffield United game. And I mean, it wasn't only the Staliki and Piero comments. There was also the comments about Paddy McNair going away on international duty. There was also the comments about Uche and why he wasn't given a run out at Coventry for those, again, that may not have been aware of that, he sort of said along the lines on Paddy McNair that, Paddy hasn't really been fully fit, but of course he's feeling fully fit again now because he's about to go away on international duty, which, could probably be, taken in whichever way. And from Paddy McNair's perspective, I don't think I would have been too happy had I have heard that. And on the Uche Ikpeazu comments, it was something along the lines of that against Forest when he was brought on, he didn't make one individual sprint.
Yeah.
I mean, looking back, I don't think Uche particularly looked lazy. I think he was involved. I think he nearly scored, actually. So probably a little bit harsh, I think, on Uche. But, I mean, it was quite ironic. He said, I'm not a stats man,
But
he didn't make one sprint. So, I mean,
yeah,
you can make of that what you will again. But, yeah, Nathan, just on them too, I mean, we'll sort of just talk about it collectively. That press conference on Monday, I mean, what did you make of it? Did you think that it's sort of like what I thought? It felt like he was almost coming out with a bit of a battle cry and sort of putting his cards on the table and saying, I'm just going to do it my way? Or do you think there was something, almost a little bit of a dig in there?
Yeah, I think after Saturday, I think he was coming out pretty much in looking for some sort of reaction, really, whether that be from some of the players that had started the game on Saturday and underperformed, or whether he was looking for a reaction, some sort, from Piero, who probably knew he was going to be dropped for this game. But it looked like a man that was just looking for something different, really. I think we need consistency now, and we needed a better result going into Tuesday. So just looking for a reaction, I think.
Yeah, I mean, looking for a reaction is, I mean, exactly what he was trying to do, I think. And in fairness, I think that's what he got. Obviously, we'll now move on to the Sheffield United game, and it sort of leads us nicely into the team news, to be honest, because obviously, as we always do, I'll ask you your thoughts on the team he named. And it was, I mean, from the team sheet, it looked more like your stereotypical Neil Warnock team, didn't it? I mean, Piero, Saliki, all dropped out. And of course, Sol Bamba come in. I mean, we'll spend God knows how long talking about his performance. But yeah, at first glance, when you've seen the likes of Bamba, obviously Crooks was back in the team. His suspension had been overturned. The likes of Watmore again. What were your thoughts when you seen that?
I think you summed it up perfectly there. It was a Neil Warnock team. I mean, any team with Sol Bamba in it screams Neil Warnock. And
Of course.
yeah, I thought initially looking at it, you pick formations and you look at how we would usually set up with the personnel on the team sheet. And from what I thought we were going to set up, like, it was completely different going into the game. But we'll get on to that. But there were, looking at it, I thought this team could either provide us with something that we haven't had in recent weeks, or it could seriously roll over and we could be facing yet another defeat. But it was the former, so thank God.
I mean, I'll happily admit, and we had a little bit of a laughing joke just as we were leaving the match. You sort of looked up to me from your seat and just shook your head as if to say, we're going to be made to look silly after what we were saying. But, I mean, yeah, it was an interesting team selection. It was a team selection that I think Warnock felt that everyone in the team he feels that he could trust. That is sort of the team. And it might seem over the top a little bit, but it almost felt to me like it was a team that he thought every single one of them are going to give their all because they don't want me to leave. And potentially, had we have been embarrassed or just beaten again, that pressure would have increased even more. And, we could have been looking at the whole game sort of thing. if he doesn't get a result against Hull, the international break's coming up. I mean, we spoke about it in the podcast, and in credit to Warnock, he's made us look a little bit silly, of course. We'll wait and see what the Hull result, but just on the Sheffield United result, yeah, it to me felt like a team that he sort of knew. Maybe if they didn't score, maybe if they didn't play great, they would try and give their all, and in fairness, they did. And I think going into the game, obviously, it was quite a bright start from Sheffield United, I thought. I thought it was, from a neutral point of view, I thought it was a good start. You know, both teams trying to play, actually. Sheffield United, I thought, were very impressive first sort of 10, 15 minutes before we'd obviously got the first goal. And yeah, they were getting a lot of joy, actually, down the left. And even, to be fair, once we'd gone 1-0 up, they were still getting a lot of joy down the left with Ben Osborne and Enda Stevens following up from his left back position. And to be honest, something that I noticed during the game, Tav was getting a lot of, I don't want to call it criticism, but words shouted at him, probably expletives from the bench to go and help Lee Peltier, because at times I think Peltier got booked early on, and they would just seem to be doubling up on him. You know, Gibbs White was drifting out to the left. Even Billy Sharp was interchanging and getting out to the left. And until I think it was probably a tactical change that Tav dropped back, and I don't think it was a traditional sort of back five and Tav was playing wing back, but he certainly started playing deeper, and that nullified them, because in fairness, I thought it was a matter of time before they were going to score early on in the game.
Yeah, I don't think we were set in a particular formation, really. We transitioned when we were in defensive phases and when we were in an attacking phase. I thought attacking, we were almost attacking in almost like a diamond shape, with Crooks just slightly behind Watmore and Sparrow, who were the two front men. And I thought Watmore was fantastic at pressing from the front, something that we haven't really had in recent weeks. Pressing from the front in a partnership as well, which really helps, instead of just going by yourself and pressing and just getting the ball passed around you. Pressing in that partnership is something that is different to something that we don't really see from a lot of teams nowadays who play with that lone striker. So playing with the two was fantastic, because it puts the other team under a lot more pressure than someone just going as a lone striker. But going back to Tavernier, yeah, we defended in almost like a 4 when we were defending, but Tavernier did tuck in later on in the game into almost like a wing back role. But he was good, I thought, dropping in there in that second half particularly. And he was in the first half. It was in the second half. He sprayed a fantastic ball over to Baller, literally full 50-yard switch, fantastic. But yeah, I thought in transition we were very good, and I thought when we talk about the balance in midfield, we said that we've been struggling for that balance, but Tuesday night I think we struck that balance really well with McNair and Howson in there.
Yeah, obviously you mentioned Paddy McNair, and obviously as well as his goal, he was an asset all night, really. I thought he never stopped running, doing little bits of sort of the dirty work. I know he did play slightly higher up than what Howson did, but I feel that even when, you know, we spoke about in the last podcast, when Howson has a body beside him that is sort of, if you want to call it, more defensive minded. I know that isn't his position, but Paddy McNair does have those instincts, as well as going forward, that he can sniff out a bit of danger and get back when he needs to. And obviously, I think those two complemented each other really well. And as you say, with the addition of Crooks as well, I think that midfield three was probably a little bit more balanced than what we've seen all season, really. So that was definitely a positive. And obviously, you spoke about pressing from the front and the addition of Watmore. I think it's a brilliant little transition into Watmore's goal, I mean, firstly, the switch of the play from Sol Bamba out to Mark Bowler. I mean, what a touch from Mark Bowler. That silhouette of him sort of mid-air, it was something that you wouldn't have looked out of place in a sort of Zlatan Ibrahimovic silhouette. It was fantastic to see Mark Bowler get up that high, get the touch on it, and then it was fizzed into Watmore. And in fairness, from our seats in the West Stand, it was almost the perfect angle because he managed to swivel and obviously hit it with his left, and it was straight over Robin Olsen, and we took the lead. And I mean, what a finish! Really, it was a fantastic goal.
Yeah, I think he's probably put it in the only place where he can to score that goal, just over Robin Olsen's head and in at the top corner. Yeah, fantastic finish, and it settles on our way. I think it kind of settled us down a bit. I think settled any nerves that were jangling about the Riverside, and yeah, we were on our way.
Yeah, we're on our way, and not long really after we'd taken the lead. Obviously, I said there was a few moments of Sheffield United pressure, and I think it at 1-0, I think from memory that they hit the post through
Endaya.
Is that correct?
Yeah, Endaya. Yeah.
I hope so. Yeah. He, I thought, was relatively quiet. He had his moments, but he's received some really highly thought of reviews from Sheffield United fans. But I thought we dealt with him well, and apart from that effort, and in fairness, it did hit the post, but it was Joel Lumley's near post, and I think he probably had it covered. Really, I want to say that anyway. That's what I'd like to think, but yeah. I mean, they had them spells of pressure, and then of course. We doubled the lead. A fantastic bit of play from Sparrow to backheel it. Nice little bit of creativity that we've missed over the last few years. Crooks does well to then get in front of his man and poke it towards Paddy McNair. I mean, it's trademark Paddy De Bruyne, as we said on Twitter. He just smashes it into the bottom corner and flies off in celebration. It was again a great finish and a great goal, to be honest.
Yeah, he's buried it in the corner, and it was good play. Sparrow, I think he's actually aiming for Watmore, who'd made a run, but it don't matter how it comes. And then yeah, Crooks neatly lays it off onto McNair's right foot. I think if he puts it on his left, McNair's flying that into the north stand, so he's put it on his right.
That's going straight out of the stadium, to be honest, Nathan.
Yeah, and then what a finish! Yeah, brilliant. But he needed that one because moments earlier we'd had a 3-on-2 and he'd opted to McNair carrying the ball, had opted to pass to Sparrow and it had fizzled out. And yeah, I think he probably should have took that one on as well, but he made up for it with that goal.
Yeah, he certainly did. And, it was. I think you could see, especially from obviously our seats again, and anyone in the ground that may have seen it. I think for me, you could see the sort of almost release of relief from Neil Warnock when that second went in. I think he probably celebrated a bit more than he usually would any other goal, and it was, it was sort of at that point that I sat back and thought, well, do you know what? Despite what we've said, and obviously, I don't think one result makes a huge difference in terms of the grand scheme of things on how I'm feeling and thinking about Neil Warnock's future. I think that would again be naive from me. Obviously, I'll ask your opinion as well. But at that point, I did think, perhaps maybe he does have a point. He's put this team out today. He's gone with his tried and tested, and for the first time, it seems ridiculous to think he's sort of gone with the team that he said is his way, in quotation marks. And it made me think, really, why haven't you done this all season?
Yeah.
You're the manager at the end of the day. And I get that there's pressure, from us fans. We've got to admit that we want to see Piero, want to see Staliki, want to see all the new bodies. But at the end of the day, Neil Warnock is the manager. And, it's sort of a positive and a negative because in one way, you're thinking, well, you should have done this before tonight. But in another way, you think, well, in fairness, you've said you're going to do it your way, and you've got the rewards for that.
Yeah, it's certainly worked in his favour. The whole "I'm going to do it my way" comment has certainly worked for him. I think playing Piero after the pressures of the Boro fans wanting to see him start a game, playing him on Saturday at Reading, and he didn't have his best game. I think it's fair to say. I mean, we did talk in the Reading review podcast that Piero possibly could be playing out of position in a deeper lying role there, and he did leave Housen exposed because that isn't where he usually plays. But I think Piero playing poorly on Saturdays worked for Warnock. It gives him the decision to be able to drop him and bring in players that he says his tried and trusted men, and they certainly put in a performance on Tuesday night that has warranted their places in the 11 for Saturday coming up.
Yeah, and obviously still on the Sheffield United game, we went in at half-time with a 2-0 lead, and from that point onwards, there was brief spells of pressure, I'd say, but nothing really clear-cut for Sheffield United. Obviously, there was plaudits must go to Joe Lumley. What a save from David McGoldrick's volley. I think that has got to be already in contention for save of the season. And there was a few other moments. I think there was one where Sol Bamba, we'll talk about his performance, but got back and sort of, I think it may have been going wide, to be honest. I think it was sharp. And it had the strike, and it looked as though he sort of cleared it off the line, but I'm not so sure whether that was going to go in. But yeah, the game sort of, we didn't really have any huge chances from what I remember, and Sheffield United obviously threatened, but not anything too clear cut. So I think, to be honest, I just want to spend a few minutes talking about how good Sol Bamba was.
No, I put out a tweet the other day, just said Sol Bamba emptying his pockets when he got home with his keys, wallet, and Billy Sharp in it. He had him every single battle that those two had on Tuesday night. Bamba was out on top every single time. He knew when to nip in front and steal the ball off him when the ball was coming into his feet, and he knew when to back off and let Sharp kind of just play with the ball with his back to goal a little bit. But yeah, he was an absolute colossus for us, and we did say after the Coventry game, if we play almost in a back three when we do defend in transition like we did on Tuesday night, he needs to be in the middle of that back three, and he was fantastic. Absolute props to him. He was unbelievable. I've just got some stats here. 5 aerial duels, 100% aerial duel success, 100% tackle success, 8 clearances, 2 interceptions. Brilliant.
Yeah. As you say, I think colossus was probably the word to describe him. I think, as you say, it was just a very experienced head, sort of just doing what he does best. It adds to it the fact that we all know the struggles that Sol Bamba has had over the past few years and what he's overcome, and it made it all the sweeter seeing him produce a fantastic performance. And it almost looked like the Sol Bamba that sort of Cardiff fans raved about a few years ago. And yeah, as you say, every ball that he could get in front of Billy Sharp and nick it, he did. The aerial duels, as you say there, 100% win rate in that. And, he even contributed to the first goal. It was his switch which led to that baller touch. And yeah, I think there was only really one mistake he made the full game, and it was a tackle that he got yellow carded for. But I think that was sort of just his passion on display and that little bit of energy that he's probably missed when he hasn't been playing sort of just that enthusiasm to get to the ball and get another applause from the fans, because it seemed like all night he was just getting a constant applause of winning the ball, winning his headers. And yeah, it was terrific to see just what a domineering centre-back performance from him, really.
Yeah, and he's got Super Soul as his new song now. So
Yeah, I mean, it probably, the chant wasn't as good as his performance. Probably we could probably think of something slightly better, but no one probably thought that Sol Bamba was playing, so it was sort of a makeshift one. Maybe so we can come up with one.
surely a La Bamba for Sol Bamba.
Well, yeah, I mean, you'd think it would fit, wouldn't you? Yeah, but we've tried and failed with La Bamba a few times since. So we'll just have to make sure it's right. Maybe so we can put out on our socials, see if anyone's got any ideas for a new Sol Bamba chant.
Oh, defo. But yeah, I'd just like to go through the full team there on Tuesday night. I think just looking at Lumley, pulled out a fantastic save, a clean sheet as well. Tavernier playing in almost like a wing back role. He was up and down for long periods of the game. He defensively, he can get caught out a few times, but he isn't a defender. So fair play to him for getting in there and kind of just providing that extra body in there for next to Lee Peltier, who I thought was very good again. Steady Eddie in there. Just no nonsense, really. He's not shy just to knock the ball out of play when there's no options on, or whenever he's won a tackle. Bamba, man of the match, abs by a country mile, I think. Dale Fry. It was interesting to see Dale Fry playing like Isaiah Jones in the first 5 minutes with a run down the left-hand side.
Yeah, he had a couple, didn't he, down that left-hand side? Something that we've never really seen from Dale Fry before. But if he wants to carry on sort of marauding forward, the big lighthouse, then I'm all for it, to be honest. I love seeing his big gangly legs, to be honest, run down the line.
We talked about Sheffield United, didn't we? Sheffield United's overlapping centre half. Well, we've got it'd be funny to see Sol Bamba and Dale Fry overlapping. That'd be hilarious to see. But yeah, Bowler at left back, again, just a steady performance, fantastic. Set the goal up for Watmore, and his touch was fantastic as well for that pass from Bamba. McNair and Housen in there, both just bossed the game, I thought, really. They just sat in there, won a lot of tackles, kept it simple. McNair obviously gets his goal. Sparra, on a what would have been quite a quiet night for him, he didn't have all too many chances, and did nearly get himself sent off, which probably should have been a sending off.
Yeah, I seen that back actually. At the match, obviously it is quite difficult to see from where he was stood. And I thought, I said to Jake, who I was at the match with, I turned to him and I said, did he just lean his head in there?
He did it twice.
We weren't quite sure, but obviously seeing the footage back on social media this week, I think he's probably got away with one, in all fairness. Yeah. And just overall, actually, I know obviously you've said it was a relatively quiet game. And to be honest, I think he would potentially agree, because of the fact he didn't score. All strikers are the same. If they don't score, they're not happy. But for me, obviously, we'll go back to it again. It seems like we mention it every podcast, but when Yannick told us, we're getting a European pedigree striker, I think his movement shows that. I know some people might not notice it, but for me, watching games, I think you can just see how clever his movement is, and playing alongside Watmore especially. Especially the second goal again, his movement draws away one of the defenders, and obviously again his back heel for the first goal. It's nice to see a striker that's proactive and sort of, will make a run if it means that, his partner next to him can get in behind and potentially score a goal. Obviously, he probably would like to have scored one himself, but yeah, I think just a little bit of credit to Sparra for that, because, some people may not sort of give him the credit that he deserves.
Yeah, and I think Watmore playing alongside him, I think Watmore, he does possess a bit of pace, but he's not like rapid, but he does have that intelligence and a good footballing brain to understand Sparrar's movements to pull defenders away. And Watmore hopefully will be in those spaces that Sparrar has looked to exploit by pulling defenders away. And hopefully these two strike quite a good partnership for us. And I thought Watmore, I haven't even spoke about Crooks yet. Crooks was again quiet, sets one up, but I hope that playing in like a diamond, hopefully he can create a good link up play with the forwards if we go with one, or if we do continue to go with two up front. But just going to Watmore, I think he set the tone for us. I was speaking with people after the game, and just his pressing, I think it just sets the entire tone, and the rest of the team look to Watmore when he was sprinting at defenders, looking to make things happen for us, looking to force mistakes. And the rest of the team think, well, if he's doing it, then we best join the press. And it really worked for us in that first half. I think at times Sheffield United did play out and get round our press, which is fine. We have the bodies in there, a back five almost, to defend that. And I think when we talk about midfield balance as well, we had the McNair joining the press quite a lot, but we have Howson to sit in there and defend us from if the press goes wrong and if they do play out from it. So I think there's no qualms about the performance on Tuesday night. I thought the team to a man were outstanding.
Yeah, and I mean, Nathan, we've spoke about it plenty of times on this podcast. Little sort of pre-match rituals or little things which get us good results. One funny little one I just want to mention, because I know he'll be listening. He's on holiday. It was pointed out to me, and I hadn't actually realised, that we've only won 2 games at home this season. The Bristol City game and obviously the other night against Sheffield United, both of which, and I usually go with my dad, he's not been there. He's on holiday at the moment. First Bristol City game. So, Dad, sorry, but if you are listening, even the blokes at the match turned around and said, if we're going to play like this all the time, you're going to have to tell your dad to stay away. So, it wasn't the cheeseburger all along. It was actually the fact that it wasn't in the ground.
Well, I had one as well. I always try and I'm not really superstitious, but I just have a little play along with the people I go to the match with and say, oh, I'm going to do this different this week and whatever. I went through, so you can get in to my seat by 4 different turnstiles, and I tried 2 for the first 2 games, and then I tried this one. I've only been to 3 home games this season, and third time lucky it was this week. Turnstile 17, that's where I'll be going in from now on.
Yeah, make sure you're back there for the Peterborough game after the international break. Well, I'm yet to know whether my dad will be back for the Peterborough game. So, if he does come back and we get beat, then I think we all know what's going on. So, I mean, just moving slightly on from that, obviously, we travelled to Hull on Saturday, and I mean, whether it had been slightly through a bit of optimism or whether it had been through certain beverages that I'd consumed on the night, I decided I'm booking tickets to Hull. So I will be at the Hull game. I'll be travelling down, and I'm looking forward to it now again. But seriously, I mean, I think it has to be said that, going into Hull, we'll speak about them obviously as we move on, but they are going through a very tough vein of form at the moment. And prior to the Sheffield United game, there was obviously lots of pressure on Neil Warnock. Now, do you think that if we do go to Hull and, it goes back to what it was prior, I mean, I'm hoping that that's not the case, of course, But do you think it sort of disregards the whole Sheffield United performance and we're back to square one again? Does your thoughts then change, or has that Sheffield United game bought him a lot more time than perhaps even if he goes to Hull and maybe stays draw or something like that?
Yeah, I do think that if we don't follow this win up and this performance up, particularly, it's the performance that matters the most. I think if we don't go and perform to a similar standard that we set on Tuesday night, I think that we're really struggling again, and it just undoes all the good work from Tuesday night. Really, I was having a think about the games where we've performed well this season. Fulham was one of them at the beginning of the season. We performed quite well there. And then again, I think probably our second best performance, our second good performance was against Sheffield United. I know we won at Forest and it was an okay performance, but they were going through quite a bad patch at the time. And yeah, they were struggling. But yeah, Sheffield United and Fulham both relegated recently from the Premier League, both possessing a lot of very good players for this level. And you maybe just a question from me. Maybe it looks like the players, if they don't get up for Hull on Saturday, maybe it just looks like they get these players are getting up for the better sides of the division rather than the Blackpools, the Hulls of the division that are newly promoted, and you kind of just expect to be on a similar par with them, even if you don't perform at your best.
Yeah, perhaps. I mean, it's an idea that I hadn't really thought of myself, to be honest. But yeah, the data is there and the results are there to suggest, I mean, I wouldn't say that probably, I mean, I may be wrong again, but I don't think it's so much that it would be certain games that they would get up for, but maybe you are right in saying that it just suggests a bit of inconsistency. And as we're saying now, it is so important that we now follow up the Sheffield United result and go and beat Hull again, because even a draw for me now would be disappointing. And I think especially going into an international break where you've got sort of 2 weeks to let it rest on your mind, if we go to Hull and it's not a strong performance, then the question marks are all back again, aren't they?
Yeah, it is genuinely just all about consistency with performances. I think we just do need to go to Hull and perform to that similar standard. If we go and do that, I have no worries about us being able to go there and get a positive result. But if we see another Coventry or Reading performance, then we're really going to be struggling. And I think it's just all about consistency, really. So we need to follow it up and start stringing some good results together, even though there is an international break coming up.
Yeah, I think you're right. And obviously, looking at Hull, I mean, we've highlighted one player, and I think looking from the outside in, I think everyone who comes up against Hull will look at him. Keane Lewis Potter, one of Hull's younger players, but seems to have been around a long time. I think he must have only started sort of making appearances for Hull at a really young age, and it just seems to me like he's been there the last few years, but he's still young. And a player to the sort of, if I was going to compare him to a similar mould of sort of actually a Duncan Watmore in terms of size and stature,
Yeah.
and someone that, over the years and even at the start of the season has been someone that's been Hull's main threat, really. I mean, apart from that they've got the likes of Tom Eaves, obviously more of a different threat and more of a target man. What are the sort of challenges that you think Hull are going to throw at us going into the game on Saturday?
They've certainly got good wide men. Keane Lewis Potter is one of those that plays off the left, and Malik Wilkes, who scored that dreadful goal for Hull
Don't remind me.
under Neil Warnock.
I've just forgotten about that, to be honest.
Yeah. So Lewis Potter and Wilkes both had outstanding seasons last year in League One. Same with George Honeyman, who was formerly captain of Sunderland. And of course, they've got a former Boro man in Richie Smallwood in midfield as well, who has scored this season. But the goals have seemed to have dried up for Hull since the opening day. They won 4-0 away it was either 4-0 or 4-1.
4-1, I think it was, to Preston.
4-1 at Preston on the opening day. But since then, I think the either the lowest scorers or the joint lowest scorers in the division, which is I'd rather not talk about stats, because since the Reading game, when I said that we'd been unbeaten against them in 8 games, we went and got beat. So
I mean, there's definitely a place to talk about stats, but yeah, it's our superstitious sides coming out again, trying not to jinx to the game. Yeah, I think obviously Hull, again, it's going to be for them, especially going into the international break. It's always a one that you want to get a positive result, because you know you've got that 2 weeks again, and it's going to be still on your mind. And you know, I think the way Hull are performing at the moment, there's probably question marks about Grant McCann, and they, as much as us, will be wanting to get a positive result and sort of stop the terrible run of form that they've been on at the moment. So yeah, do you know what? I'm going to ask for your score predictions going into Saturday. I never really asked for your predictions, but I want to see what you think.
We have had this before, where you just look at the game and we're going away to Hull, which is not too far down the road. We're taking a sellout away support, 3,500 Boro fans in the away end. And we've had this before at Oakwell, where we take big crowds to Barnsley, and we struggle in games where we do have that away support. I'm really, really hoping that it's not the same, and that Boro just go there and we continue on from Tuesday night, and almost as if the game from Tuesday hasn't even finished, and we look to just take the game to them in that opening 45 and get a few goals up, and then look to continue that in the second half. So I'll say 2-1 Boro.
2-1 Boro. I mean, what did I predict? 3-0 against Blackpool at home. So, I mean, best I don't actually even give a prediction, to be honest, Nathan. Especially considering I'm going, and I mean...
I'm going as well. Well,
we're both going, yeah. I mean, yeah, we both went to the Coventry game, and look what happened there, so...
Oh, wait, give us a head in your heart one, if you don't just have one.
Okay, heart... Do you know what? In fact, head and heart were winning. We are winning. I'm convinced of it, and this is probably going to get clipped up, probably by you, to try and take the mick if we do lose. But I've got a feeling. I can't see us going there and not getting a positive result. I'm going 2-0.
2-0.
2-0 wins on the bounce, and Sparrow's going to score, and let's have an out the box one for the second. Dale Fry, bullet header. Dale Fry, yeah.
I'll have a Sol Bamba.
3,500 Boro fans. Dale Fry, I think it'll only be his second ever goal.
Yeah, and he scored the other one in COVID, so he hasn't scored with the crowd.
Yeah, exactly. We'll go with that. Yeah, I think that's a nice place to leave it on. A little bit of positivity for a change from us too, after what was probably one of the most doom and gloom podcasts anyone's ever listened to the other day.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you everyone for watching. This is obviously going to be up on YouTube. Let us know in the comments below your predictions for the game. Let us know on Twitter, potentially if anyone's going. Let us know any new songs, of course. There was the song last week, wasn't it? Who was it? Was it a Sparrow chant? It slipped my mind.
Yeah, Sparrow, yeah.
Sparrow chant, of course, that was shared on social media. Yeah. So yeah, thanks again for watching, and this has been the Boropolis podcast once again.